welcome back to the channel. Today is a beautiful day, but the winds of change are howling through Port Charles. We are standing on the precipice of a massive narrative earthquake, and the tectonic plates of this show are about. The impossible choices facing our favorite families are about to get infinitely more complicated, and the momentum is shifting in ways nobody saw. Because we need to talk about Tamara Braun. She just left her gig over at The Young and the Restless, and the soap opera rumor mill is spinning out of control. There has been absolute silence about her returning to Days of Our Lives, which leaves exactly one logical, earth-shattering conclusion. A familiar face is returning to Port Charles. It has to be Kim Nero. I am sorry, but the writing is literally on the wall, and if you look at the current state of the canvas, her return makes almost too much. Wait, I am getting ahead of myself. Let me just take a breath and break down exactly why this is blowing. Okay, back to the point. Let's look at Drew Kane. Am I the only one who thinks Drew has become completely unbearable lately? He is an absolute menace right now. The man is unhinged, out of control, and frankly, he is a danger to himself and everyone around him. Ever since he survived that horrifying lake incident and started regaining his mobility and speech, he has been on a scorched earth revenge. He is warring with the Quartermaines, he is making everyone miserable, and he is acting like a total sociopath. He needs an egg. He desperately needs someone to ground him before he completely destroys his own. And who is the one person on this entire planet who actually knew Drew Kane before he was kidnapped by Helena Cass? Kim Nero. I mean, think about it. Kim is the only woman who knew the real Drew. Not the Jason duplicate, not the memory-wiped amnesiac, but the actual, original Drew. She holds the key to his past in a way that literally no one else on this canvas does. Drew has been getting some of his original memories back recently. He mentioned details about his high school days, and he clearly remembers hearing about the Quartermaines back in the day. He even implied that he knew about his twin brother Jason long before the truth came out, but he just never cared to look the family up. But we know absolutely nothing about his adoptive parents. Did they die? What happened to them? Kim would know. Kim is the missing puzzle piece to Drew's entire psychological foundation. But we have to talk about the history here, because Kim's past in Port Charles is so incredibly tragic and messy. Remember Oscar? Oh my god. Oscar Nero. Just thinking about that storyline breaks my heart all over. Kim brought Oscar to Port Charles, and we all watched that sweet boy fall in love with Jocelyn. He was Jocelyn's very first boyfriend, and they were so young and innocent. And then the writers ripped our hearts out by giving him a terminal brain. I bawled my eyes out for weeks during that story. It was devastating, and it completely broke Kim. I know some people are loving the current mob drama, but personally, I miss the deep, emotional, character-driven grief stories like Kim losing Oscar. She was a relatively normal, grounded person before her son died. She was a dedicated doctor, a loving mother, and she just wanted the best. But the grief of losing Oscar absolutely shattered her psyche. It destroyed her. She spiraled completely out of control because she could not handle the agonizing pain of the void Oscar left. So what did she do? She desperately tried to fill that void, which leads us to the Julie and Jerome era. I know, it was a wildly controversial pairing, but you have to admit the psychological trauma driving it was fast. Kim was so broken that she had a short, chaotic relationship with Julie and Jerome simply because she wanted to create another. She needed a child to replace the one she lost. It was messy, it was toxic, and it was classic soap opera gold. And it worked. She got pregnant. The last time Kim was even mentioned on the show, she was living in New York City, and there was a photo of a little boy on her table. A little boy she named Andy, as in Andrew, named after Drew Kane. Are you kidding me? The layers of emotional baggage there are just staggering. She has a son with Julie and Jerome, but she named him after the love of her life, Drew. But we cannot forget the most unhinged part of Kim's grief spiral. Remember when she literally tried to seduce Drew to make a baby with him right after Oscar died? Yeah, that happened. She was so out of her mind with sorrow that she begged Drew to sleep with her so they could recreate Oscar. It was one of the most uncomfortable, heartbreaking scenes I have ever watched. And Drew, to his credit, turned her down. He wasn't interested in her like that anymore, and he was completely focused on raising little Scout. He rejected her, and that rejection was the final nail in the coffin that drove Kim out of Port. She left town devastated, broken, and alone. But now the tables have completely turned. Drew is the one who is broken. Drew is the one who is acting out of his mind, alienated from his family, and spiraling into dark. He is pushing everyone away, just like Kim. If Kim returns to Port Charles now, she wouldn't be the desperate, grieving mess she was back. She has presumably had years in New York City to heal, to raise Andy, and to find herself. She could be the strong, grounded presence that Drew desperately needs to pull him back from the brink of total villainy. I know some fans are gonna hate. I see the forum posts. I know people think Kim was too whiny or too problematic by the end of her run. But personally, I think bringing her back is a stroke of absolute. The narrative symmetry is too perfect to ignore. She tried to save herself by clinging to Drew, and he pushed her away. Now, Drew needs saving, and Kim might be the only one who can pull him out of the deep end. And let's look at the broader canvas implications of Kim returning with a young. Andy would be around the exact same age as Scout. Imagine the dynamic of Drew trying to navigate his relationship with Scout while suddenly having Kim and Andy back in his orbit. The blended family drama writes itself. But the biggest bombshell? Andy is Julian Jerome's son. Do you know what that means? That means Andy is Lucas Jones's younger half-brother. My jaw's on the floor. Lucas has been put through the absolute ringer lately. He was held at gunpoint by Jen Sidwell. He is carrying the immense, crushing guilt of Marco Rios dying for nothing, and he is just so isolated right now. Lucas needs family. He needs a connection. Giving Lucas a little brother to bond with would be such a beautiful, healing storyline. They have both lost so many loved ones. Lucas lost his adoptive father, he lost his husband, he lost his sense of security. Bringing Andy into his life could give Lucas a renewed sense of purpose and joy. It would tie Kim directly to the Jerome legacy and the Jones family in one fell swoop. Plus, we have to talk about the practical side of things. Kim Nero is an OB-GYN. General Hospital is always in need of doctors. Britt Westbourne has been dealing with massive WSB legal drama and her own personal chaos. Portia Robinson just had a baby under incredibly traumatic circumstances and is going to be on maternity. The hospital is understaffed, and they need a competent, established doctor to walk the halls of GH. Kim, stepping back into her scrubs and taking charge of the maternity ward, would seamlessly integrate her back into the daily life of Port Charles. Sometimes I contradict myself because I sit here and think, wait, do I really want all this Julian Jerome baggage brought back up? Julian is dead, the Jerome family is scattered, and Ava is currently drowning in her own blackmail drama with Ethan Lovett. Do we really need to drag Kim and Andy? Yes we do. Because that is exactly what makes this show so incredibly addictive. The interconnected webs of family history, the past sins coming back to haunt the present, the impossible emotional conflicts, that is why we watch. Ava would lose her mind knowing Julian has another son. The Quartermains would flip out. And Drew? Drew wouldn't know what hit him. I just cannot stop thinking about the potential scenes between Kim and Drew. Imagine Drew, sitting alone in his dark, empty house, plotting his next vengeful move against the Quartermains, and suddenly there is a knock on the door. He opens it, and there stands Kim Nero, the woman who loved him before he was a mob enforcer, before he was a corporate raider, before he was a paralyzed pawn in a twisted game. Looks at him, really looks at him, and sees right through the angry, bitter facade he has built up. What happened to you, Drew? She would ask. And for the first time in months, Drew wouldn't have a snarky comeback. He would just break. I am getting literal chills. Just typing that. The emotional payoff would be monumental. We have watched Drew suffer so much trauma. He was locked in his own body, fully conscious but unable to move or speak, while Willow and Nina controlled his life. That kind of psychological torture changes him. It twists your soul. Drew feels like he cannot trust anyone in Port Charles, because everyone has either used him, lied to him, or abandoned him. But Kim wasn't there for any of it. She is a blank slate. She represents a time in his life when things were simpler, when he was just a man trying to be a good father to Austin. And let's not forget the fact that Kim has been completely out of the loop. Surely a United States congressman having a stroke and suffering from locked-in syndrome would have made national news. Why didn't she reach out? Why didn't she come to visit him at Turning Wood? Maybe she was terrified. Maybe she didn't want to drag young Andy into a world of turmoil and media scrutiny. Or maybe she did try to call, and the people controlling Drew intercepted the message. The writers could spin this in 100 different, fascinating directions. I know I am ranting, but I just feel this in my bones. Tamara Braun is a powerhouse. She brings so much depth, vulnerability, and raw emotion to every single role she plays. Having her back on the GH canvas would elevate the material for everyone she interacts with. She has chemistry with literally everyone. And honestly, we need a break from the constant mob shootouts and WSB spy. Don't get me wrong, I love watching Anna Devane run around Europe, and the whole Ross Cullum Cold Fusion storyline was a wild ride. But soap operas are built on romance and family drama. We need those quiet, devastating conversations in the hospital chapel. We need the tearful confessions in the Metro Court Garden. We need Kim Nero back to remind these characters that they are human beings who bleed and grieve and love. So, I am officially calling it right now. Tamara Braun is coming back to Port Charles as Kim Nero this fall. She is bringing Andy with her. She's going to get her job back at General Hospital. She is going to forge a beautiful sibling bond between Andy and Luke. And most importantly, she is going to be the absolute wrecking ball that finally shatters Drew Kane's walls and forces him to find his humanity. If I am wrong, I will happily eat my words. But if I am right, you all owe me a coffee at Kelly. Will Kim's return finally save Drew's soul, or just ignite a brand new disaster? Drop your wildest theories in the comments below, hit that subscribe button, and let's ride this out together.